Keep this out the way. All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So excited. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of TAIOACI. My name is Brendan Eldham, and today I'm so excited because we have a very good friend and inspiration, also a mentor to me in so many ways and so many aspects in artistry. We have a good friend, Richard Vasquez, aka Dr. Love, here with me, and I'm so excited you're here. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Love, Richard Vasquez.
Good to be with you. Always good to be with you.
Oh man, so
and I always get inspired by you too.
Oh man, I love the connection that we have, not just in artistry but also outside of DJing, outside of just so many things that we do.
The spiritual connection.
Absolutely.
Yes. Right.
So the way that, for those of you that don't know, the way that I met Richard was through DJing. I actually think the first time I ever met you was at the Standard Hotel. I don't even know if you remember this.
No, I don't remember that.
You did a party. It was like a Saturday evening.
Yeah.
You had DJ'd as a guest spot at the Standard Hotel. Ivan Diaz threw an event, and you were a guest DJ. And I just remember being like, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah.
And he's just dropping gems. And I just loved every second of it. That was the first time. But I think the first time we actually like really connected, I want to say, was a Sushi Samba. I would come and listen to you play in Miami Beach.
Yeah, definitely.
And you were there. I think it was Thursday nights. Was your?
I had a residency there on Thursday night.
Yeah. So this was before Oasis. This was before. Even before that time, I would just come. And if you ever been to Sushi Samba in Miami Beach, there's like this little area by the bar that you can like dance at. And my friends, we would just dance there because we couldn't get anywhere else. I was underage.
Yeah, it's quite a unique layout because it's a large dining room.
Yes.
And in the middle of the dining room is a sushi bar where there's usually 4 chefs working at the bar.
Oh, I love that.
And then raised up is a platform which the DJ booth is on, and also the second bar is on that as well. So the DJ can see this entire room, and it has zones for the volume of music and how much bass here and everything. So it's been really, really designed well so that the music does not interfere with the conversation going on between people who are dining.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
it
someone
is.
definitely thought about
But it's
that.
so much fun to work there because you see all these people coming in and out and everything.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm very, very interested. I'm very, very curious about people and how they come and go and who they're with and what do they do and everything. And so then, you know, I certain ones stand out and I will play to see them just grooving while they're having dinner, you know, and then I get so excited when they actually come and say something to me about the music or whatever, and it was a great place. I did that for 3 years. I enjoyed it.
To me, Richard's one of the greats in DJ. I love listening to him spin. So this is where we are today. You know, like you're still DJing, you're still doing what you love to do.
75.
Well,
still DJing. Still DJing.
75. And he's still killing it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's backtrack. This is what I want to do. I want to talk about how did we get here, right? So
that's a long story. 75 years, right?
Well, let's try to put it.
I'm going to trust you to edit it.
Okay.
You're very good at editing.
All right.
I like the last interview that you did. All
right, so let's go with, when did this inspiration to get to music DJing, where did that begin? Childhood, teenage years?
Well, I think that as people, we begin to develop our identity as a teenager. And music plays a part of it. And also what you like to do plays a part of it. So most teenagers, they start identifying with sports, and others will identify with music, and then other things as well.
Yeah.
So, but I felt that my identity was that I'm an artist. And this was not really encouraged by my family, especially my father. To him, artist was almost a bad word.
Wow. Give me an idea of like the time of like years.
Oh, we're talking about, I became a teenager in 54.
Okay.
1954, 1954, 55.
Okay.
No, it was 56.
Okay.
Okay. And I had already experienced my creativity in music because my mother wanted me to play the piano in church.
Gotcha.
And it was a small church.
Yeah.
It was kind of like an outcast church.
What location are we in right now?
We're talking about Staten Island, New York.
Staten Island, New York.
Yes,
Okay.
Mariners Harbor specifically.
Okay.
Which was a very lower class neighborhood. And she wanted me to play the piano, and I definitely liked that. Anywhere I went where there was a piano, I always sat down and played without having any lessons. So she gave me 1 year of lessons. As soon as she found out that the piano teacher was teaching me worldly music, she said, you can only teach him, see this hymn book here? You can only teach him how to play the hymns in this book, you know? So my parents never listened to any worldly music, and they went to church 5 times a week. The one who actually played the piano was the pastor of the church. Mm-hmm. He didn't live in our neighborhood. He came from 30 miles away, someplace in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So he would start the service, then he would go down the stairs and sit at the piano and play the tune, and then he would go back up again, and he would start the tune there, and he would go down and play. So now, all of a sudden, I'm ready to play the piano in this church.
Huh.
And but unfortunately, my lessons were shut off after 1 year. So I was 11 years old. But what started to come towards me was the music from Newark and the music from Brooklyn.
Okay.
There were radio stations at the end of the dial that were black stations. It was the only black music that was on the radio in those years. So I started to incorporate the music from that into my music. And also on Sunday, there were some black churches from Harlem, and those are Newark and everything, that broadcast their church services. And I started putting that into my music as well. And then I started visiting those churches as well.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to find that they welcomed me just as a musician and as a person of the same faith. And by the time I was 17 or 18, I was an exceptional gospel music player. Then I was graduating high school, and I didn't do very well in high school in terms of grades, even though I was pretty smart. Yeah. Because I commuted from Staten Island to Brooklyn, which was a 2-hour commute either way.
Oh my gosh.
You might ask why I did that?
Yes, why did you do that?
It was because I really didn't fit in the neighborhood that I grew up in.
Huh.
I was constantly persecuted and bullied, and I had to run home from grammar school. I had to run home from school before I was beaten up by the neighborhood thugs, you know. Yeah. So I just wanted to get out of there, and I had the opportunity to go to an exceptional high school, Brooklyn Tech. That time it was an all-boys high school. Yeah. It was, at that time, it was almost like a prep school in terms of it was all boys, and it was really, really serious people who really seriously wanted to get a good education. And I didn't have good grades, and my parents didn't put any money away for me for college. There was no, what do they call that today, where you get a loan? There were no college loans at that time. That didn't come until maybe 4 years after that. No financial aid, no loans from banks. Got it. But I taught myself how to paint. I taught myself how to draw, and I had beautiful pieces that I had done and had painted, and put together a portfolio and competed for a scholarship to an art school. Wow. And I won the scholarship. Sweet. And I had a year of scholarship in School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. So then I was commuting there as well to learn art. But now that I was actually in an art school, they made me aware that fine arts was not really a good idea for someone to pursue because of the competition, because at that time the kind of art that was being recognized that brought an artist good money was abstract expressionism. And I wanted to paint things that were realistic.
Got it.
And I didn't really understand or grasp what was the value of
Yeah.
abstract expressionism and what they call today modern art. So the second year I began to study advertising graphic design. And I went with that. I became an advertising graphic designer when I graduated from art school. And my first job was designing ads for newspapers for a JCPenney company. And then my second job was doing advertising promotion graphic design for Reader's Digest. I did that for 3 years. First job only 1 year, Reader's Digest 3 years, and I had 2 art directors that I worked with. Both of them were extremely great mentors for me. And also, it brought me into a environment where I was working every day with people from very, very good educational backgrounds and also cultural backgrounds. So my speech pattern started to change from that. Staten Island, they really have the worst Brooklyn accent of any place. It's more Brooklyn than Brooklyn. And so that gradually started to disappear. I didn't put too much conscious effort into that. It just kind of sort of evolved.
Yeah.
And I had heard somewhere or read more than once that if you really, really want to get up in terms of your career, it's not good to stay at your first jobs for very long, because very seldom do they promote from within. So I went to a placement agency, and they placed me with Mademoiselle magazine as art director of Mademoiselle.
Was that a big jump for you too? Or?
That was a big jump for me.
Yeah.
Yes. And I got that job because actually I didn't get the job from a placement agency. The one Reader's Digest I got from a placement agency, but I got this one because I became friends with a woman in Fire Island who she had worked with me. I skipped a step.
No, it's okay. No, I'm all in here.
She had worked with me at my previous magazine, and we were friends on Fire Island, which was Ingenue magazine, which was a teenage girls' fashion magazine. And I was assistant art director there. But now I became an art director in 1970. That's 8 years after I left art school with Mademoiselle magazine. Now that's a Condé Nast publication. Condé Nast puts out Vogue.
Okay.
They put out Vanity Fair. They put out Glamour. And Mademoiselle was a more creative, underground kind of fashion approach than the other two, which were very conventional. And now, while I was working with Mademoiselle, I at last finally moved into Manhattan and had my own place.
Finally.
And I was also, I lived with my parents because my parents were, they weren't any bother or hassle to me in any way.
Yeah.
I could come and go as I pleased, and so there was no hindrance. So I stayed with them basically to save the money.
Of course.
You know, it would cost a lot to live in Manhattan, and I commuted. But at the same time, I went to school at night, and I studied painting.
Studied like class, or you or
studied
self-study?
in class
Wow.
at Parsons, and also the New School, and more courses in School of Visual Arts.
Yeah.
And during that period of time, from 1972 to 85, when I quit painting, probably produced about more than 100 paintings.
Wow.
On canvas. And I could have probably had the knowledge at that time to produce paintings that would sell. But that's not what I wanted to do. I figured I used my art in a commercial sense to make money and have a decent living.
Yeah.
And I had a pretty decent lifestyle at that time.
Yeah.
So at night I would just go and use my creativity and my arts to make paintings of things that I wanted to paint.
Yeah.
And it was mainly people, portraits, landscapes.
That's beautiful.
Things
And that's
like
bold
that.
because not a lot of people can do that. Split those two. Like, this is how I make my money and this is what I want to do for myself, artistry, you know?
It's the same thing with music.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can do crappy top 40 cheesy music and make lots of money, or you can do music that has meaning and deepness and good instrumentation and actual vocals that require skill to sing the notes the right way. Or you can go to auto-tune and take anybody who's a star, who's really, really attractive, make them a star and make tons of money that way, but there's really very little integrity in it.
And that balance is tough, I think, for anyone. How do I make a living, and then how do I feel alive in my artistry, right?
Yes.
So all this, I mean, we're talking pretty much graphic design journey right now, right?
Right.
As far as the arts, as far as painting and drawing and all that. So where was music in all this, or was this kind of like you took a pause in music?
Well,
or developed
my music developed strictly in the area of church music.
Okay.
And
was church an ongoing thing during this whole journey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. But once I got into art school, I didn't go to church as much.
Okay.
I basically had to be on church to play the piano, the organ.
Yeah.
Sundays and Wednesday night.
Got it.
And that continued to develop and grow.
Yeah.
I developed a style of playing that I would say would be equivalent to Nina Simone. If you've ever heard her play the piano, she's known mostly for her vocals, but she was an incredible pianist as well, in a gospel style with jazz infusion.
Gotcha.
So I played the piano and the organ in church until I was about 35, which that would bring me into the mid-70s.
Gotcha.
And in 1970, my brother, who was a bass player, he also played bass in church, we did a rock band. The first band was a band that would be kind of in the style of Procol Harum and the band and Eric Clapton and all of that combined.
Okay.
And that was in the early 70s. And then in the mid 70s, we discovered on television a church in New Jersey was called Maranatha, and they were the first church to actually have a ministry of music in the church that was rock music.
Interesting.
And they moved from New Jersey to Manhattan around Times Square. It was called the Lamb's Church of the Nazarene, and it was full of artists and musicians. This was an incredible church.
And this was pretty progressive for that time.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, Paul Moore
Yeah.
was on television all the time, on 60 Minutes, all these different programs that feature that sort of thing. It was an outrage to most evangelical Baptists, all these churches that now have churches called Rock Church.
Now embrace it. Yeah,
right?
that's crazy.
But it was an outrage to them. How could you put this worldly music in church? But Paul Moore had the vision to do that. So my brother and I along with a musician from a large black church in Brooklyn, and a guy who came to us from Oral Roberts University as a assistant pastor on our church. He sang and played guitar and everything. We put together a Jesus rock band.
That's awesome.
It was called Sultry, and then it was called Higher Ground. And we did that for a while until we got discouraged. The reason we got discouraged was because they weren't giving us even expenses for transportation and gas and all that sort of thing. We were going to churches, we were going to parks and everything, but nobody was taking up an offering for us. So we got discouraged about that. And where am I now? I always continued with the music.
Yeah. So musicianship was like kind of like in like the family DNA almost, right? Because your brother.
My brother was a very good musician. My mother and father never.
Really?
No, and my grandparents never.
So your influence in music was very like cultural, your location based, like where you were.
Yeah, and the radio was a very, very big thing, but not the middle of the radio.
Gotcha.
The radio that was on the ends of the dial.
Gotcha. Now, not to go too off topic, but I'm just curious, like, how was that being like kind of in the middle of those two worlds, like, where you're playing music that's a little bit more modern, that's like not just radio, but it's more about those times, but then you're also playing music, spiritual music. Like, how was that being involved in those two worlds, I want to say?
There was not only in music but in art as well.
Yeah.
There was a conflict between fulfilling my desire to be the artist who I knew I was, and living up to the standards of the church. The identity of the standards of the church at that time were quite rigid and quite unforgiving. So there was a conflict.
Yeah.
Interesting story was when I was in art school, on scholarship, one of the courses that was required for me was to draw from the nude. And so I was doing that, and just as normal as could be, thinking nothing of it. My mother happened to look into one of my sketch pads. We would do it on a large newsprint pad, and she saw all these nude drawings.
What are you doing?
She didn't say anything to me. She went to the pastor.
Oh no!
And the pastor called me in, and he said, "Your mother told me what you've been doing when you've been drawing and everything. This is not God's will. This is not God's way." And I said, "Well, what about the beautiful paintings of Michelangelo? Adam created by God."
Yeah.
And he would say, "Oh, well, that's the Catholic Church. They're a bunch of they're a bunch of infidels. They're not Christians."
Oh no.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
he said to me, we can't have you, doing our music. And also doing this, it's one or the other. You got to choose.
Man.
So I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I'm on scholarship, and this is going to be my career." It says, I still love the Lord and I still love the church,
Amen.
but I'm going to do what my scholarship has given me the opportunity to do.
Wow.
So for like maybe a couple of months, I wasn't playing the music anymore, and
man,
what do you think happened? People stopped coming to the church.
Oh man.
So he changed his mind. He said, "Okay, all right."
Oh, because you needed bodies in the church. Wow. Sorry, I'm like kind of dumbfounded.
Well, it was a small church in a lower class neighborhood that had just been infused through a public housing project.
Yeah.
And people were coming in, but he thought it was from his preaching. They were coming in because of the music.
Yeah.
So he changed his mind about that. Now, the interesting thing is when I did, 5 years later, when I did become very, very proficient at being a commercial graphic designer, he came to me and he said, "I've been appointed for this ministry which is going out across the country and making them aware of how difficult it is to do our kind of doctrine, our kind of thing in the large cities. And we're going to have a big convention where people are coming from all over the country to put their support and their money into supporting ministries in the cities, in the big cities. He said, can you do like a convention kind of thing, you know, to promote that? I said, sure, I would love to. Okay, I'll do it. So I did it, and it was like, blew them away. It was the only thing like that at their convention. And I got a letter of thank you and recommendation from the top guy in that particular denomination, you know. But they didn't offer to pay for my expenses, you know.
Yeah.
That's okay. I knew I wasn't giving it to them, I was giving it to the Lord.
Amen.
And so, but then I went back and said, look, they didn't want me to do this. They threw all kinds of scriptures at me of why I shouldn't be doing this. And now that I've accomplished at it, they want me to do this, and they want me to do it for free.
Yeah, faith is convenient when needed, right? You know.
Right.
Oh man, that's great. Because, well, I mean, we're talking about like artistry, but what I always find so interesting is how these life experiences, spiritually, you know, have kind of really made the momentum and pushed you to where you are, you know, today as an artist. And while you're going through it,
well, it made me who I am.
You don't think anything
you know?
of it, you know. It just kind of like, this is my experiences. And what I love about not just your work but also your life is you're an individual that follows your intuition, follows your heart, which is like, this is what I want to do. And I love how you said before, it wasn't just like, I know that I needed to make money, but there was a part of me that just really wanted to do what I wanted to do in my heart. Although everybody was doing this abstract thing, this is just what I wanted to do, and that's beautiful.
And then I would read self-help things that said, look, just do what you really, really enjoy doing, and you're bound to be successful.
Yes.
With hard work and doing what you enjoy doing, you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
You could work hard and not be enjoying what you're doing, and, well, maybe you'll be successful.
Yeah.
So I felt all through my life that I had an inner guide.
Yeah.
The inner guide may not have always coincided with the people that threw scriptures at me.
Yeah.
But I looked deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And always found guidance from my inner guide, which of course in our particular system of beliefs is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that, I mean, in that context of the conversation, is that a lot of people, when it comes to their idea of faith, it's driven by an agenda, in a sense. There's these bullet points that they got to make in their walk, in their career, and there's others that are led by this inner intuition, this inner, like, this is the direction I'm being called to go, and they're similar yet very different. And what I find really fascinating is that through, and you can hear it in your music too, which I love, is when you DJ, is that you don't always sway to maybe what everybody else is wanting, desire. You almost play as if this is what I like, this is what I feel, and then people kind of gravitate to that feeling, not to their preconceived, this is what I think I want. And I just think that's absolutely beautiful. Mm-hmm. What I want to know is that, okay, so graphic design, music, how and when, are we jumping too far ahead? Like, when did the DJing become a part of this?
Towards the end of the 70s.
Okay.
A lot of nightclub culture began to develop.
Got it.
Before that, I was quite often asked to bring my music to parties. And that would be in the form of cassettes that I had put together. Compilation, wasn't mixed or anything like that. But I was in Manhattan. There were a lot of lofts that were being converted into living spaces, a lot of artist parties. I collaborated with several of those artists as well that had nice loft spaces. So I would do that. And then in the late 70s, I had my own business, my own graphic design business.
Awesome.
And it's something that you may have a lot of work for a couple of months, and then maybe a week or two will go by and you won't have any work. And so I started going out more and more to the nightclubs. And a lot of people have the wrong idea about nightclubs. Yes, nightclubs are about people go there to pick up somebody as a date. People go there to score drugs. It's true. But I would say that a good portion of the people that go there because they want friendship. And it's hard, even in church, it's hard to go someplace and make a friend.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are privileged have their country clubs. They have their trade associations. They have their alma maters and college associations that they can socialize in. But there are a lot of people that don't have any of that, and a lot of people that really don't fit into their neighborhood either. Especially when you go to Black and Puerto Rican in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a lot of gang activity for young people and very, very little civic or social activity for young people. So I started going out, making a lot of friends from all over the world for the first time. People from all parts of Europe, Asia, even Africa and everything. And it was a social thing that flowed. And where it was really great is because you didn't have to find a way to break the ice with somebody that you were interested in. You would either dance next to them and see if there's something going on, and then maybe later on when you sit down, buy them a drink, or you were offered a drink or whatever. It was a lot easier than any other social situation that I had ever been in.
Yeah, music and dance has this like universul language in a sense, you know?
Yeah. And I liked it, and I wanted to do more and more of it, and it also sometimes fed into putting me into contact with a good client who would give me work as well. So I started doing that in the late 70s, and the music that I first identified with was called dance-oriented rock. There was also, alongside of that, disco had developed too, but I didn't so much really identify with that. Until I went to the Paradise Garage. At the Paradise Garage was the most incredible DJ that I had ever heard. And he would do this party, which basically started at 12 midnight on a Saturday night, and it would go until 1 or 2 in the afternoon on Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
Guess what?
What?
I met a lot of kids there that would leave just in time to get to church on Sunday.
Wow.
Talented kids, musicians, singers, artists. You know, there was no place for them in the neighborhood that they were coming from. A lot of them from bad neighborhoods. But they were talented. They were great musicians. And again, they were used in the church and never really got any financial gain from their talent. So now they come to the Paradise Garage, and I'm sure a lot of them came from the same kind of church that I came from, which was a legalistic, judgmental church that wanted to keep you even from having friends in the world. They would always say, you can't have friends in the world because, you know, they will keep you from being a good Christian. So insecure, such insecure Christianity. So I began to meet these people, and they were, you know, getting together with producers who would make a really great dance track, and they would be recognized, and they'd perform at the Paradise Garage. Just someone like Billy. You know, Nobody's Business Billy. You familiar with that? Okay. So her father was a Baptist minister. She married a Baptist assistant pastor, and as soon as she had this hit record, Nobody's Business, people discovered that she was going to a nightclub.
Yeah. No.
No.
not in this world.
Her husband had trouble. The church had trouble.
Yeah, I bet.
People
This is taboo culture. Yeah.
So she made this record. Basically was a Billie Holiday record. She says, if I go to church on Sunday and cabaret all day Monday,
Yeah.
ain't nobody's business if I do.
That is okay. Just hearing all this, because what I love about your story is that it really takes you back to some root times where music and spirituality, even secular music, right, were so connected from what was happening socially, what was happening in that generation. I mean, and today there's a way more of a separation, and the idea of it has been lost. But like during your time, they're talking about it where it's like this was not spiritual, but it was so spiritual during those times because
Right.
you had these people coming from spiritual backgrounds in church, and they were coming with, no, I need to be honest, I need to express myself, I need
Right.
to, and put it out to a larger audience.
Right.
And those roots have been lost
Right.
for so long, but you lived that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it wasn't only my period.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm singing in a choir that sings classical music
And
in
you
Latin.
still sing.
Right? In a church that couldn't be more mainstream middle America. All right?
Oh,
But
this is amazing.
that music was done by people who were supported by very, very wealthy benefactors to create music for the church.
Yeah.
Like Mozart, like Handel, like Bach, and many, many others. You could say much of the classical music that was produced in the 1500s to the end of the 1800s, most of that, a good deal of it, was produced to be done in the church.
Yeah.
And yet those guys were deep inside artists
Yeah.
as well. We know there were times when the Pope told Michelangelo what to do,
Yeah.
and what he could do and what he couldn't do in the work that he had commissioned him to do.
Yeah.
And he followed his own heart.
But that is such like, I mean, that's the artist's struggle. I mean, I know we're talking about it in like a very deep spiritual aspect right now, but the artist's struggle is that like this whole conversation is following what's honest and true versus following what the financial backing is telling me what to do and where to go.
Yeah.
And that
I think even then the spiritual thing,
Yeah.
every single artist
Yes.
is faced with, do I want to do this to make a living? Do I want to do this to make a lot of money?
Yeah.
Do I want to do this to make an expression of what I want to give to the world that is true and honest to me?
And that is the journey.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there were times when I thought, when I'm painting, I'm sure I know I can make a painting that people would buy. Do you just do what's selling now and do a little twist on it and make it your own thing? And you've got a product.
Yeah.
But do I really want to do that? When I go to Wynwood now,
Yeah.
the past couple of years, almost everything that's in the gallery looks like a cartoon.
Yeah.
The art style, it's as if it's a cartoon. It doesn't look like fine arts to me, but yet today it is accepted and recognized and gets a very, very, very high price.
Yeah.
It started out with Andy Warhol, pop art,
Yeah.
looks like a cartoon.
Yep.
Now, you can do that. It's easy to do that. Or do you want to really, really produce a really nice painting
Yeah.
that may take several weeks
Yeah.
to make, rather than something you can do
Right.
very,
there.
very quickly?
Yeah.
And so much of the art that's being sold today is manufactured. A lot of it is through photography and Photoshop and everything, and
Yeah.
and there's not that much craft involved in it.
Yeah, because everything is now. Quick,
Yeah.
quick. How do I get
Uh-huh.
up? How do I get
Yeah.
up?
And I got to make it fast so that I can make a lot of money.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's backtrack. We were talking about your experience in Paradise Garage, but also within nightclub world. So like during that time, you had this influence from nightclub, but now we're talking about influence from church, and we're also talking about influence from radio. So when you started, let's talk about the first time you ever like DJing, right?
Yeah.
Where were you musically? And what year
Clash, New Order, Nina Hagen, Iggy Pop.
They're all going like this, so I'm like...
Roxy Music.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. This was music that was done by rock musicians
Okay.
that were for the first time using drum machines and synthesizers.
So electronics were first getting into the
for the first getting into it, yes.
Okay.
And it was called dance-oriented rock.
Huh.
It was rock music that was made not to listen to on the radio or necessarily listen to in your living room. It was music made to dance to, but it had rock flavor to it, and it was mostly by white artists.
Yeah.
And that's the music that
That's
I was
where you
doing
were.
at that
Okay.
time when I first started DJing. Yeah.
All right. So then let's go on this musical journey. All right.
Okay.
So this is where you started. You're in the nightclub arena in the scene, right? So let's talk about some artist influences that kind of like paved that way, influenced you to go in the direction of dance music.
Well, there were DJs.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Kamens was at Danceteria.
Okay.
There was Bill Ballman, who was at a place called the Anvil. There were DJs like Africa Bambaataa, who was at the Roxy. It's hard for me at my age now to remember the names back at that time.
Yeah, but at this time,
you probably heard of them.
Yeah. So at this time, from what I understand, is like DJing was in its introduction. It was in its rise, where it wasn't like it was a thing. Like you got into DJing when DJing became a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we kind of made it a thing.
That's what I'm saying.
Friends.
You were like one of the pioneers of this.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay.
Now, the reason I started going to the Paradise Garage was because Larry Levan played a lot of those artists for his crowd.
Yeah.
And he would lose a percentage of the crowd when he played those records, when he would do those sets. But he played them anyway. So I wanted to hear them on a sound system that was miraculous.
Yeah.
The sound system was so loud, and every single component of the track was clear. One didn't interfere with the other. So I wanted to hear those records on that sound system. Mm-hmm. And gradually I started to like disco and started to like the other stuff.
Got it.
I liked a lot of the funk
Yeah.
that he played right off the bat, but gradually disco and some of the other stuff.
Isn't that beautiful about the art of DJing? It's like to be able to take the different genres and kind of introduce them to an audience when maybe that wasn't what you were listening to during that time. But then you're in this room and you're listening to what you like, but then they flip it and you're like, oh wait, this is funk and I kind of like this. Or this is disco and I never really listened to it and now I like it. I think that's just like beautiful about the DJ experience.
There was probably a moment in your experience as well where you opened up to house music, soulful house music, because you started in hip hop.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so not to go too much on my story, but for me, I always loved R&B, and I always loved vocals.
Like Marvin Gaye and
well, for me,
Curtis Mayfield.
My listening time was like late 90s, early 2000s, so it was kind of like a big transition for hip hop and R&B. And there was a couple of singers that I really listened to on a very random. My friends in hip hop, there were break dancers, but there were a lot of break dancers that were going to house dance clubs as well. And house dance, its cousin is hip hop dance, so it's just kind of like it was a thing at the time in Long Island. Growing up there, I wasn't really in tune with that, but my friends would give me a CD, check this out, listen to what you think. And I remember listening to it, and I'm like, this is like really good stuff. It's like R&B with like a little bounce to it, you know.
So you didn't hear house music in a club first? You heard it from a friend's CD?
The first time I ever heard it in a club, man, it's been. All right, so the first time I think I ever heard it at a club would have been House Dance Conference. Brian Footwork Green was the individual that threw it, and I believe, he's the one that threw that event. And I was a break dancer, and I wanted to go for an event that was where they were breaking. But the thing is that it was in the back room, so it was like the side room, but not really like the main room. So to get there, you had to go through the main room, which was a house dance club. And that's where I first encountered, and I didn't even go to the break room that night. I just stayed in the house room. I was like, this is different, you know, very contrast to my world, which was like breaking was like in your face, competition.
What
battle.
about it did you like that you weren't getting from hip
hop? Social connection in a positive way. While I love and still embrace hip hop,
was mainly the message.
No, I don't want to say the message.
So when you say social connections, you mean the message that was in there socially?
Hip hop has its source for me is like the inner rebellion, which is a positive thing. You know, you fight for a cause, you fight for what is right and what is just. But sometimes arguing and debate is not always the right way of conversation. And in house, when you go to clubs, there's this diversity and this conversation that happens amongst people that isn't a debate. It's just a connection and finding out, you know, with one another. And it's a different type of social atmosphere. And I don't want to say one is better or worse.
Right,
it was
just a different attitude.
Just different. And that kind of drew me to this, like, there's something else out here. Because like we were talking about earlier, I've known this my whole life. But this is different. Why do I feel different? But why do I feel okay in this different arena? And I want to say house was probably the gateway for me. That made me think, what else is out there besides my world of hip hop?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even hip hop was a gateway for me in many ways out of certain ideas of mainstream.
Sure.
But it kind of pushed me to this, all right, where there's more out here. And house, as we know, is just like a soup of music, like from funk to soul to gospel to this to that. And that, once you start understanding how broad yet specific it can be, it can open up doors and windows to so much, right? But enough about me, because that was so good. Okay, so for you though, like we said, there's this soup, right? Right? Of music. So let's talk about some of those influences, right? I mean, you are now coming into a nightclub experience. What was it? What'd you call it? Spiritual rock? Is that what you called it? Or
dance-oriented rock.
Dance-oriented rock, which I've never even heard that term before. That's awesome.
You ever hear of New Music Seminar?
No, never heard of that at all. Okay, so now, what are some of the genres that you understood and at that time that you were listening to that maybe we don't even know, besides disco, like you were being introduced to for the first time, as far as in your DJ and nightclub experience?
There weren't a lot of genres within that.
Or maybe influences.
They were artists.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
And I like that, because you're not talking about, okay, it was this type of music. It was like...
No, there weren't schools.
It was individuals.
Within, like there is house music, there's like... endless amount of genres, you know, and but this it was also called post-punk.
Okay.
All right. So it was people like the Sex Pistols, people like I think probably the artists that I would mention, you probably wouldn't have heard of them. The Buzzcocks.
No, never heard. But I will look it up.
Echo and the Bunnymen. There was...
this is awesome.
I wish my memory were better.
Okay,
10 years ago, I could have rattled them off.
This is what I love about this conversation, is that this is what I'm getting. For me, 2017, we look at music and it's like... You
heard of The Clash, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay.
But we look at music and it's like, oh, that's this genre and that's this genre. But from what I'm getting, correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about it was just music. And there was different individuals that played a different approach. But it wasn't like this was this type of music. Maybe it was labeled later on at some point. But and a lot of people don't know, as far as its roots in house music, it wasn't like it just started off with this kick. It was a development and a progression of a collaboration of individuals, correct?
Right.
So
Depeche Mode and New Order are probably the ones that took the rock thing and started to make it more the electronic thing.
So before this was even like an electronic experience of music, you were in a nightclub of funk and soul and alternative and dance-oriented rock. This was a combination of music.
Yes,
right?
It was.
So how was that influence on you?
That club that also played DOR would also play the Supremes, would also play Marvin Gaye, would also play Wilson Pickett.
Gotcha. So how's like today we have like open format DJs that kind of play a little bit of everything. It was an open format in a sense.
Yeah, but open format DJs are not really that open.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
They'll play mostly hip hop with some Latin and some rock. They're not really that open. They very seldom play any good house music.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So yours is like open.
Totally open. Whatever.
Okay, so how did that influence? Okay, the only reason I'm asking this is because you come from a church background. So how did that influence where it's like now I'm experiencing diversity at its fullness?
Yeah.
How did that like change a bit of you, or how did that open your mind? How did that influence your artistry?
I don't think that I ever had any resistance to opening my tastes and my interests. I have the kind of a personality that, like food, for instance, I don't eat one food for very, very long. I always want to experience. I'm an Anthony Bourdain kind of.
Yeah, let me try. Let me try everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to try everything. You know, and it was the same with music. It's the same with literature. It's the same with movies. Everything. I've always been. I don't want to just know the people that look like me.
Yeah.
I want to know what an Aborigine would have to say to me. I want to know what a Rasta man deep in the forests of Jamaica has to say to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I've always found that if a person is of goodwill and has a good spirit, there are always things that you can share, that you can say to each other and enjoy from each other. So I've always felt that way.
So the music was not necessarily a catalyst for this. It just was
it was a fulfillment.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. Mm-hmm. So I've always had this desire of openness and diversity, and now here was my opportunity.
Yes.
To experience that.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, there's so much. All right. So, in your music, you have all those influences. Were there any cultural influences happening at the time? Not just like in New York, from other cultural, as far as like global, from different countries that were happening in the time, or maybe you were growing up that had a big influence on the music that you would play. Because I mean, I understand that it was very diverse as far as people, but now, I mean, was there like Latin music happening? Was there Afro influences?
Well, we always had Latin music because my grandfather would have it in his own bedroom.
Mm-hmm. Vasquez. So
we had music from Puerto Rico, and it was the hillbilly music from Puerto Rico.
Got it.
So I had that from a very, very early age, which was mostly drums.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. It's just like so much. I don't know where
to begin.
But I think one of the things that culturally that gave me fulfillment and development was the races coming together.
Yeah.
And in '63, was the Civil Rights Act, and that really, really quickly began to change things, to change neighborhoods, to change who you actually came into contact with and everything. And I was very, very, very much and proactive in all of the civil rights things that I could do. And still maintain my career, and my church stuff as well. But any leftover time, I would get involved with that. There was the War Resisters League to protest our involvement in the war in Vietnam. And that was a big movement in New York, but it was a big movement countrywide as well.
So there was just so much happening.
The late '60s.
Yeah.
That influenced me as well.
Yeah.
Growing up and going to high school in Brooklyn Tech, I would see across the street the police breaking into they're now high-end brownstones, but at that time they were tenement brownstones. I would see them breaking in and hauling off drug users.
Yeah.
And but in the late '60s, it became kind of thing like, well, I want to try this. I have friends that are doing this and they're great people and they have a good time and everything. Well, I want to try it.
Yeah.
So pick up a joint, start smoking. Lo and behold, I found out a couple of years later, the most talented, recognized organ player in one of the largest black churches, he wouldn't think of sitting down at the organ on Sunday morning without having a joint first. Okay, so it wasn't the revolution, I forget what it's called, but at the end of the '60s, where drugs started coming in, people started experimenting with LSD, with mushrooms, and all that sort of thing.
Experimental age, yeah.
Yeah, Now, I didn't ever want to do anything that was addictive, which would be heroin or cocaine or meth, but I wanted to try and do some acid, and I wanted to do mushrooms and all those
You're
kind of
open to
things.
the experience.
I was, yes, in the late '60s and into the '70s.
I didn't know this about you.
I'm an open book.
No, I love it.
I'm an open book.
And I love how real and raw you are. There's no putting up a facade and how it is. Yeah, that's awesome.
No, I don't want to hide anything.
Okay, so all through these years, I mean, we're talking about decades. I mean, for me, I turned 30 in a couple weeks, right? So for me, I've only had 3 decades of transition, not even, right? 2 decades or so, whatever, of transition.
Yeah, but things go much faster now.
Oh, very
things
true.
Change so quickly.
In a 5-year experience.
My God.
So how is that for you, personally, mentally, spiritually, physically? How was that for you, transitioning through music all through these years?
Exciting.
Yes.
I just wanted to see what was going to come next. What could I experience?
But not everyone
what kind
thinks
of
the way
adventure?
you think, and I love that because it's like the way you think is like not everyone's response is that. Everyone's response is like, oh well, back in the day, it used to be like this and it used to be that way. But for you, you're very
Those
like
people. I mean, I have a certain amount of patience for them.
Yeah.
But my heart goes out to them.
Yeah, of course.
Whenever I hear back in the days, something within me just bristles when they call me a legend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be seen as a legend. I always want to be relevant. A legend is somebody who is no longer relevant.
Wow.
And there are people who won't listen to me, won't basically within the house community who shun me.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that I post
Yeah.
on my podcasts and Mixcloud and everything is not strictly the music they listen to.
Yeah.
Like I'm a sellout because I like EDM. I'm a sellout because I like dubstep. I'm a sellout because I like trap. I just love it.
Yeah.
I love all of these things that come that are new creations.
Yeah.
And I know that it comes from what we did first.
Oh my God.
They wouldn't be there today.
You know its source,
We hadn't
but you
done
know
that
where
first.
it was
Yeah.
going. Oh my God. We need more Dr. Loves in our world.
Well, you know what? The young people are, for the most part, not like you. For the most part, the young people are not very communicative. They don't trust older people. They don't really engage with them in their parties. I go to the parties anyway. I don't care that they don't engage with me.
Yeah.
It's too bad. They might gain something by engaging with me.
Yeah.
But they probably think I'm a dirty old man, look there to pick up their girlfriend or something. Who knows what they think.
Yeah.
I don't blame them,
Yeah.
because look at the world
Of course.
that we have created and left to them
And that we're
that they
living in.
have to deal with.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Absolutely.
The world.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to them. Yet, I want to be engaged with them for what I can learn from them, what I can experience from them that I can't experience from my own peers.
Oh my gosh. And that's a huge thing to say, because more and more am I finding. I mean, my wife and I were highly engaged with the youth and working with them musically and dance, but I'm learning so much that my mentors are younger than me in so many ways, that they're teaching me things, and I'm still, I'm still young in my own right, but they're teaching me things and they're showing me ways to look at the world that I never would have considered. And so much of that, while I think I'm helping them, they're helping me.
They're tremendously smart.
I know.
These kids these days that are like in their teens and in college age, they're not like the generation before them. These kids really are good kids. They have to be good kids because they know that it's a tough world out there, and in order to have a decent lifestyle, they're going to have to amount to something. They can't be,
Of course. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so as we kind of pull everything together, what I want the audience to hear and listen is, where did you get the name Dr. Love?
That's not really very much of who I am.
Yeah.
I was DJing now in Miami Beach.
Okay.
And the DJ culture was ramping up. And you were getting people like Tiesto, and you were getting people like Avicii, and you're getting... Hardly ever did you come across a DJ who had a first and a last name. And yet, that's who I was. So I was playing at the Raleigh at the time. The pool party on Sunday afternoon was a big party. 2,000 people came every Sunday. And people would constantly, what's your DJ name? But what's your DJ name? They had resistance to just using my given name.
Yeah.
And I said, I really got to come up with a DJ name, and I want something that represents me. And my system of beliefs is very, very strong a part of my identity. And I believe that God is love. And if people ask me what my religion would be, I would say my religion is love. And also, I had a experience where I came into a DJ gig. It was in a nice place. I went to the manager. I said, I'm your DJ for tonight. I'd never met her before.
Yeah.
She said, no, you're not. Yeah, I'm your DJ. I'm Richard Vasquez. No, you're not.
Yeah.
She said, why? She said, you don't look like a DJ. And I said, well, what do I look like? She said, you look like you're a doctor or an architect or something like that. You don't look like a DJ. I don't know if I want this in my DJ booth. I said, well, you was recommended by Gary. He knows,
Yeah.
So that kind of fed into it as well. Doctor and love.
Boom.
And of course, there was a great disco tune by it, by First Choice. And Choice was the name of my club. And so it kind of just came off like that. I'll call myself Dr. Love. But I don't find that I like that much to be referred to as Dr. Love.
Yeah.
It's just something that I needed to have at that particular time.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting thing, like titles and tag names.
You've gone through quite a few.
Well, I feel the same way because in the hip hop world, I'm known as Shade.
Shade, yeah.
But
I never liked that because I don't see you as
Yeah.
In my lingo, shade is a dishonest person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A person you can't trust. They're going to be slimy, and
Yeah.
I never liked that. I was so glad when you changed your name.
Well, it was kind of like you're talking about, embracing you, who you are.
Yeah.
And I was going through my own spiritual experience at the time, and a lot of it was like I didn't want to hide behind a title that people thought I needed to be. I wanted to be me, and my real name is Eldom. When I was adopted, my parents named me Brendan.
Name.
So Brendan Eldom is my first and middle name, and that became what I wanted people to call me. And even now, in the hip hop world, people know me as Shade, but I always say, "Oh no, call me Brendan, please." Just naturally. I love that about you. While maybe those that know you by a certain title, you're true and honest to who you are. So. Okay, so kind of in closing, I want to ask you a couple questions, and this is a lot more about maybe advice or some words of wisdom from Richard Vasquez. What would you tell the upcoming creative, whether they're in music or in any artistry, what would you tell them is one of the most important things you've learned in your journey?
Gee, that's tough.
Yeah.
One thing.
Yeah. Well, you can give me two, but we'll try to go with one. The one thing that sticks out and like, this is something that is so important to me in your artistry.
Okay, don't look for approval.
Elaborate,
Don't
please.
look to anybody for approval. Don't worry about recognition. Don't look for love. Just give yourself what you have to say, what you have to offer, and leave it at that. Don't go and analyze, like, well, what did I do wrong? What could I do better? Anything like that. Just give something that is pure and honest and loving because you love doing it. If you don't love doing it, find something else to do, right? And then the other thing is keeping open. Have a curious mind.
Yeah.
Constantly take courses, learn from here, learn from there, learn from what's on the internet, what's on YouTube.
There's so many resources.
Don't waste your time.
Yeah.
75 years now, life seems short.
Yeah.
But I think the worst thing that you can do for yourself is to waste time.
Yeah.
Now, relaxation and rest and everything is a very, very valuable thing. That's not a waste of time.
Yeah.
But a waste of time is to just spend hours talking nonsense and gossip and tearing down people, or to watch TV and movie that is nothing but titillation. For the most part, I don't watch any entertainment that is not also education.
Very true.
It could be education about human nature and psychology. It could be education about becoming successful.
Yeah.
When I read books, most often they are biographies, autobiographies of people who did this, that, all kinds of things. I love biographies because I always learn a lot about what I missed, what I still might be able to catch, what still might help me to achieve my goals. I find it so interesting, how people got there. Right now I'm reading Napoleon.
Oh, man.
And it's amazing where he came from.
Yeah.
He got to control all of Europe for about 3 or 4 years. And of course, various parts of it for a much longer period than that. And this summer I went to Paris, and I hadn't been there since 1970. This time I was just amazed at how much of Paris is Napoleon. Everything beautiful there. The most beautiful places were stuff that he commissioned, that he made sure from wherever he went, be it Egypt, be it India, be it wherever he went, he always brought back beautiful, beautiful things of that culture and put it in the Louvre Museum.
Yeah.
So what was that? Be open and be honest, right?
That is beautiful. Okay. Let's just say 2,000 years later. Okay?
2,000 years from now?
Yeah, from now, 2,000 years later. Both of us, we're not here, okay? And there's, people dig up some sort of work and collection of Richard Vasquez, right? What would be the piece of creativity that you would want them to discover, and why? Like, what would it be about it that tells either a story about you or tells a story in general that people need to hear? What is something that you've created or worked on through these years that you would want people to discover?
I'd want them to discover my Mixcloud page, my Podomatic page. 150 Mixcloud, over 100 Podomatic, 100 mixes on iTunes.
I love
There's
it.
a chance that might survive
That
in some
they
way or
could.
form, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Chance. Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
That's the wonderful thing too, that when I started doing these mixtapes,
Yeah.
and I'd have to, before they had copiers that would do 10 tapes at a time, I had to do each one individually, and
Yeah.
many of the times I was doing 20 copies, 30 copies for various people.
Yeah.
I got on my Facebook page a couple of weeks ago from a lady in New York who was basically Keith Haring's main girlfriend.
Okay.
She sent me a tape that I did 25 years ago. She still has.
Oh my gosh.
And she says she still has it and she still listens to it.
That is awesome. That there's still a physical,
Yeah.
not digital, a physical representation of your work. That is beautiful. Okay, last question. To describe your work, your creativity, your artistry, with one word, how would you describe your music, your creative outlets? How would you describe that? You can explain the word, right? But what would be the one word that you would use to describe
I need
your
2
work?
words.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Spiritual and intelligent.
Ooh, explain.
Spiritual in that it has vibrations, it has presence that is deeply hidden, not on the surface. That delves into the area of faith, things that aren't seen, but things that a spiritual person has the knowledge of.
Yeah.
By following spirituality and by practicing and putting into behavior spirituality. So my music is spiritual, but I mean it has stuff in it that is just fun. There's stuff in it that is crazy. I love crazy people. I love crazy artists.
Right?
You know?
It's the truth.
But that's spiritual too.
Yes. It's the human experience.
And intelligent means that I really don't have much patience for stupid stuff. I really don't.
Yeah.
It can be funny, it can be crazy, but just plain stupid stuff,
Yeah. No thought behind it.
no
Yeah.
thought behind it. Just like throw it out there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Intelligent. I love spiritual and intelligent. Oh my gosh. This conversation, I'm
I'm glad you liked it.
gonna have to chew on.
I've enjoyed. I
This
always
is-
enjoy everything that
Absolutely.
we do together. It's great. I hope
Absolutely.
we get to DJ again sometime soon.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be an honor and a pleasure. Man. All right, guys. So, wow. That was a moving.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Absolutely. Side note. I always ask people what Ninja Turtle they would pick for their glass of water, and I asked Richard.
Purple.
And he picked purple, but he didn't know who the Ninja Turtles was, which was so awesome. Because I mean, it was
What guy is the
that is
purple guy?
Donatello.
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 Oh, he's a poet, right?
I don't know.
I think he was. I think he was a poet. Yeah.
I mean,
He wasn't a musician. He wasn't a painter.
well, many of these come from the Renaissance of times, correct?
Oh yeah.
right. So
definitely.
they
Yeah,
were
Michelangelo, Da Vinci. Yes.
Yeah, so they were
Renaissance.
all
Uh-huh. Think,
everything, and that's a huge inspiration to me.
Yeah,
Anyway, that's
right.
another conversation itself. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Richard Vasquez, aka Dr. Love. He'll always be Dr. Love to me, whether he likes it or not, but this guy's an amazing
I hope
individual.
you come to me sometime on the dance floor and say, "Hi, Dr. Love."
Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time on another episode of TAIOACI. Wow, that was so good.
Good.
That was awesome. Give me a hug. That was fantastic.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
I mean, I really feel so much of my life is about engaging in conversation. That's
I wish there were more young people like you. Very few.
It's just you learn so much, from listening and asking questions, and I like teaching people things, but I also come to the understanding that when it comes to spirituality, you just don't have all the answers.